In the spring of 2022, Anna Moriah Wilson was one of the fastest rising names in American cycling. Everyone in the sport called her Mo. She had just signed with a professional team. She was favored to win a race in Texas that was 4 days away. On the night of May 11th, a friend found her on the bathroom floor of an East Austin apartment. She had been shot 3 times. The woman convicted of killing her had never raced against her, had never met her by most accounts more than once. What connected them was a man neither of them ended up with. The apartment belonged to Kaitlin Cash, a friend Wilson was staying with while she was in town. Cash came home a little after 10 that night and found Wilson unresponsive, bleeding in the bathroom.
Hey, repeat that for me to make sure I heard it correct.
Yeah, 1708 Maple Avenue. It's a back garage apartment. It's behind the purple house.
Okay, what's the telephone number that you're calling from?
It's 512-784-5305.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
My friend is staying with me, and I just walked in, and she's laying on the bathroom floor, and there's blood everywhere. And I don't know what happened. I can't tell what happened.
Okay, I'll tell you what to do. I just need to gather a little bit more information. What's your name?
My name is Kaitlin.
Kaitlin, are you with her now?
Yes, I'm with her now.
How old is she?
She's 26.
Okay. Is she awake?
She's not awake. There's blood all over her face
Kaitlin.
and all on the back of her head.
Is she breathing?
No. She's not
Okay.
breathing.
Okay, I'm getting help started right now, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what to do.
Wilson was pronounced dead at the scene. Cash later testified about that night in court, the jury watching her recount in real time, walking back into her own apartment. Before we go further, I'd genuinely like to know, at what point in a story like this do you think the behavior actually becomes visible? Drop a guess in the comments, and let's find out together if you're right. Kaitlin Armstrong was 34, a yoga instructor, and more recently a real estate agent based in Austin. She'd been in a long-term, on-and-off relationship with a professional cyclist named Colin Strickland. Strickland and Mo Wilson had briefly dated the previous fall, during one of the periods when he and Armstrong were apart. By the following spring, Strickland and Armstrong were back together. Wilson was in Austin for a race. On the day she died, Strickland texted Wilson. They went swimming that afternoon. He took her to dinner that evening. Court records show he did not tell Armstrong the truth about where he'd been. That lie is where the case actually begins. At trial, Austin Police Detective Daniel Portnoy walked the jury through the phone data. Wilson's phone was in active use for about 45 minutes before 9:15 that night. Armstrong's phone, according to Portnoy's testimony, was powered off at 7:30 and did not come back on until 9:47. A phone going dark for 2 hours proves nothing on its own. People turn phones off. But an intelligence analyst for the Texas Attorney General's office, Pamela Mazak, later presented GPS data pulled from Armstrong's Jeep, the vehicle's own infotainment system, placing it on the street outside Cash's apartment complex around the time Wilson was shot. The same navigation system, according to testimony, had recently had an address near Wilson's location entered into it. A neighboring business, 68 Degree Kitchen, had exterior surveillance running that night. Its owner, Joan Gilchrist, testified that the footage showed a motorcycle passing the restaurant at 8:15 and 54 seconds, timed to the second. Prosecutors used that clip to place Strickland, who rode a motorcycle, somewhere other than the apartment, not to clear him, to account for him. None of this on its own put a gun in anyone's hand. The defense made that argument directly, and it isn't a weak one. Location data can place a vehicle. It cannot, by itself, place a driver. There was also a gun. Investigators say Armstrong bought one in December of 2021, months before the murder, after telling Strickland, according to his own testimony, that she felt uneasy riding alone, that there'd been a homeless encampment near her usual trail. In January, prosecutors say, she bought ammunition, but on cross-examination, the defense got the state's own ammunition expert to concede something specific. 28 other customers bought that exact same type of ammunition on that exact same day. It is a common round among target shooters. A purchase that looks damning in isolation gets considerably more ordinary once you're told it wasn't unusual at all. 2 of Armstrong's friends did testify that she had said at some point before the murder that she wanted to kill Wilson. Detective Richard Spittler told the jury he believed the evidence pointed to jealousy as a motive. Those are the state's strongest human witnesses. They are also, like most things said in private conversation months before a crime, impossible to independently verify, which is exactly why the defense spent so much of the trial trying to keep the case anchored to circumstantial data instead of memory. Kaitlin Armstrong did not testify in her own defense. Her attorneys built their case almost entirely on undermining the state's forensic evidence rather than offering their own version of what happened that night. 3 days after the murder, before any warrant had been issued, Armstrong flew from Austin to Houston, then to New York. Investigators say she was dropped off at Austin Bergstrom at 12:30 in the afternoon. On May 17th, police issued a homicide warrant. May 18th, the day after, Armstrong boarded a flight out of Newark bound for Costa Rica. According to the U.S. Marshals Service, she flew on a passport that wasn't her own. It belonged to her sister, Christine. For 43 days, nobody knew where she was. When U.S. Marshals and Costa Rican authorities found her, she was staying at a hostel under an assumed identity, taking yoga classes. She had cut her hair to shoulder length and dyed it a darker brown. She had bandages across her nose and bruising under both eyes, explained, she told people there, by a surfing accident. In her belongings, investigators found a receipt for $6,350, cosmetic surgery, billed to a name that wasn't hers, Allison Page. This is the piece of the record that doesn't need an expert witness to interpret. GPS data can be argued with. A fingerprint that isn't there can be explained away. A new face, a new name, and a hostel on a beach 6 countries from home, 3 days after someone dies and 1 day after a warrant goes out. That's not a data point anymore. That's a person telling you, without saying a word, what they already know about themselves. The evidence that couldn't quite convict on its own was never really the point. The running was. In his opening statement, prosecutor Rick Jones told the jury what he believed the last seconds of Mo Wilson's life sounded like.
The last thing Mo did on this earth was scream in terror. And you hear those screams. There's a surveillance camera with an audio portion to it. We'll play that for you. And you'll hear those screams. Those screams are followed by 2 gunshots.
That is the state's characterization, built from surveillance and ring audio described at trial, not an agreed fact, but the frame the prosecution asked the jury to hold on to for the next 2 weeks. 42 witnesses later, on November 16, 2023, the jury deliberated for under 3 hours and returned a guilty verdict on first-degree murder. The next day was sentencing. Wilson's mother, Karen, spoke about who her daughter was before any of this happened. The jury deliberated for punishment for roughly 3.5 hours, longer than they'd spent on guilt itself. They sentenced Kaitlin Armstrong to 90 years.
In cause number D1DC 22301-129, the State of Texas versus Kaitlin Armstrong, verdict of the jury. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kaitlin Armstrong, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment, signed by the presiding juror on today's date, 2:14 p.m.
She will be eligible for parole after 30. Almost none of the forensic case against Kaitlin Armstrong was clean. The fingerprints didn't match. The ballistics were contested by a credentialed expert. The GPS data proved a vehicle's location, not a hand on the trigger. If you'd sat through only the first 9 days of that trial, circumstantial would have been a fair word for it. What closed the gap wasn't a single piece of physical evidence. It was the running. A phone going dark for 2 hours is nothing. A passport that isn't yours, a new face, a new name, a hostel on a beach 6 countries from home, 3 days after someone dies, and 1 day after a warrant goes out. That's not a data point anymore. That's a person telling you, without saying a word, what they already know about themselves. The evidence that couldn't quite convict on its own was never really the point. The running was.